Hi guys, Coach Fenner here from FTP Training. Coming to you via lockdown in France at the moment during what is a pretty tough time all around the world at this moment in time with the coronavirus. I'm getting lots and lots of messages, obviously chatting with all my athletes about what they should be doing, how they should be dealing with this virus at the moment. And I've written a few pieces up which have been developed into little flashcards with what I believe are some good measures to take during this period of time. I think it's important to remember that although we think of things often that impact our lives as you know that's happening now is going to be for the rest of time, the reality of this is this period of time will end. So I think it's vitally important that for all of us to get through, we need to create and need to continue with some of the things in our lives that create a constant for us. We're in lockdown here in France. I've got ex-riders and good friends that are in Andorra and Spain that are not even allowed out of their apartments. So how are they dealing with that? These are professional riders that are used to doing 30 hours of training a week. So how can we deal with this to not only maintain our level of condition, but also try and keep our sanity in times when a lot of our normal routines we're not able to continue with them. So I think it's important to understand that, as I said, this will end. And when it does end, I think the key is to make sure that you're in as good a condition as possible so that we can jumpstart back into training specifically for our target events. Now, of course, the short-term events, the next 1, 2, 3 months they've been cancelled. They've either been cancelled or they've been postponed. I'm still looking towards the end of the year. So anywhere from August, September, October, November, when a lot of big races, especially in Australia, are due to take part. And I look and I hope sincerely that by then the coronavirus itself has been contained, and that there is a much clearer pathway so that race organisers can continue to do these races. But I'm looking at them as being our goals now. So what are we going to do in the short and mid-term to be able to try and achieve those goals? Obviously, when your normal routines are impacted, it's very difficult to stay on track, and it's very easy to let the wheels fall off the wagon and suddenly go, well, I can't race. My big race was going to be in a month's time, and it's not now, so I'm just going to sit at home, probably not exercise quite as much, probably eat a little bit more than normal, maybe drink more than normal. And all these things are going to do is actually, they're going to impact you negatively in several ways. Increased weight, reduced condition and fitness, and potential slipping into some sort of depression or some mental health issues. Because, you're not getting them endorphins, you're not getting out there, getting the rides in that you want to. So I think it's super important to still maintain some discipline and some training program structure that's going to give you something to just keep focused on in the meantime. So for some, if you can still ride outdoors, obviously Cycling Australia, for instance, has put out a letter to most clubs, etc. If you are going to go outside and going to ride with groups, then they've given you some strict instructions or some guidelines for how to ride in a group situation. Obviously, any group is liable to risk infection from COVID-19. So I think it's important to keep a barrier or a distance between fellow riders. Now, if you're just going to go out and train on your own, I think I've instructed most of my athletes, and we've chatted about it as a coaching group, to think about this bigger picture that I'm talking about. There's no need to be going and doing massively super hard rides at this moment in time. There's no need to be doing super high intensity anaerobic repeat efforts, etc. We're not coming into a peak at this moment in time. What we want to try and do is maintain the level of condition that we've had without losing too much. So I've reduced the intensity of most of my athletes' training programs and brought most of it to within, up to sort of threshold, maybe into low VO2 intensity efforts. But I'm trying to mix that up. We might be able to work on cadence type drills and pedaling technique. We can break it up into lots of different efforts of, 5, 8, 12, mixture of efforts for our threshold, sweet spot training, SST or tempo based efforts, which again, if you're going to be doing shorter rides, you really want to focus more on that type of an effort with lots of intervals rather than just going out and doing a little ride. Now, if you are going to go out, remember that when you come back from training, there's a specific window of opportunity to take on carbohydrates. Taking on the carbohydrates post-activity is also going to help strengthen that immune system. So again, one of the things that I was concerned about athletes doing very high intensity exercise is their vulnerability to then getting sick if they came into contact with someone with the virus. Now, for most, as we know, the virus symptoms for most people are relatively mild. But if you have asthma, if you've got a precondition or any diabetes, etc., it's very, very important to make sure that you distance yourself from those potential threats. So again, going out and doing a massively high intensity exercise, I don't think is conducive to that. So again, what I'm doing for a lot of athletes, especially those that want to maintain condition but want to do more indoors in a more structured environment, is we're doing ergo sessions. Now, ergo sessions, obviously very difficult to do a massive amount on the ergometer. You can't sit down and do a 4 or 5 hour ride. Well, you can, but it's mind numbing to do so. So what I've done for a lot of athletes over many years, actually, it's not just now, is we can look at doing double days. So doing double workout days is actually, it can be quite good for relieving that boredom and also stopping that cabin fever. You know what it's like preparing to go out on a bike ride, even preparing for an ergo. It's not a simple matter of just jumping on the bike and doing it. It takes prep beforehand, it takes recovery afterwards. So if you're doing 2 of those sessions in a day, a 1 hour session will actually pad itself out to be more like an hour and a half. So by the time you've done 2, you've actually spent more like 3 hours of time focused on your riding, which again, I think can be a positive thing. So we might do that in 2 ways. We might do a raised wheel climbing hour in the morning, and you might break that down into 5-minute efforts, 8-minute, 10-minute, 12-minute efforts, etc., mixing it in and out of the saddle, mixing up your cadence, trying to keep it fresh, kind of keep it so that you're not going to get stale and bored. You might back that up in the afternoon with another session, might be a longer durational tempo type effort. You might jump onto a Zwift and do a group ride. Zwift is going to be a godsend to a lot of people at the moment in terms of the ability to feel like you're participating within a group, get some more stimulus there on a visual basis rather than just sitting looking at your cycling computer. So double days at the weekends when you've got the opportunity to have more time on your hands is definitely an option that I would advise. During the weekdays, again, a mixture of good quality tempo, SST and threshold based work through the week is going to leave you in a great position. You may drop overall CTL, chronic training load, because obviously you may not be getting the same amount of volume that you normally would, but you're doing quality work on the ergo. So in 4, 8, 12 weeks time, when we are able to jump back into training, you're doing it from a really good position. You're doing it from a strong position of good cardiovascular fitness, and we can jump back in and focus on the targets and the goals ahead of you. So from a physical side of things, I think trying to just restructure how we're looking at our training and think about what we're doing in that bigger picture is what's key. Okay, you can still create good adaptation and good training stimulus on the ergometer in an environment that is exciting and fun by using stuff like Zwift, or by changing your sessions into shorter interval based work that can keep you fresh and keep you excited for jumping on the bike. All right, guys, I want to wish all the best to everyone out there going through this incredibly tough time for the world that we live in at this moment in time. I'm sure we'll see the end and the light at the end of the tunnel before too long. and we'll be able to resume back into major frothing at the nostrils efforts, preparing for your peak races later on in the year. All right, guys, if you've got any questions, if we can help, we will. We're not experts on COVID-19. I'm just using a common sense approach to training and getting through this problem and this process at this moment in time. If you want specific answers, please remember your World Health Organization, local governments, and check out all of the advice that they give, and please adhere to it. Remember cleanliness, washing your hands, looking after yourself post-exercise. We'll get through this and be frothing before you know it. All right, guys, I'll catch you out on a Zwift ride somewhere. Cheers. Bye-bye.